self-improvement versus self-acceptance. And by the end of this video, you'll have more clarity over what you think is a best fit for you. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you are new around here, my name is Christina and I help empower people on their spiritual and their healing journey so they can have a more fulfilling and purposeful driven life. Don't forget to do all those wonderful things if you haven't done yet. Subscribe and hit the bell notification so you're notified of when I post a video. So now that's bits out of the way, let's dive in. Firstly, I wanted to start this video off by diving into what the definitions are of self-improvement and self-acceptance, and to get a feel of kind of what is the difference between the two. So I decided that I was going to use my old little phone here, and let's look up what each means, what Google says when it comes to that. Self-improvement, meaning we'll put, so right at the top of Google, it simply says self-improvement, the improvement of one's knowledge, status, or character by one's own efforts. So this is kind of like we improve ourselves. We take practical steps and practical actions to improve ourselves. Like it said, improve our knowledge, improve our behaviors, and ultimately just become a different version of ourselves. So let's see what it says about self-acceptance. So here it says, self-acceptance is defined as an individual's acceptance of all of their attributes, positive or negative. When you're self-accepting, we embrace every part of ourselves, not just the positive things. And I think that is the key here that we often overlook when it comes to self-acceptance. With self-acceptance, it just means like accepting who we are as a person rather than becoming a different version of ourselves. So let's jump back a bit. Let's go to the self-improvement, what this really means. So when you think of the word self-improvement, what comes to mind? What do you feel? And what do you believe self-improvement means for you? For me, when I think of self-improvement, I think of, like I said, becoming the most optimal version of yourself, improving your skills, your knowledge, just becoming a version of yourself that is the best version of yourself. We try to improve ourselves, but what also it means is that we are trying to chase some version of ourselves, and we don't accept who we currently are. We don't like ourselves, maybe some attributes we have, some aspects of ourselves, some behavior patterns. It means we are not accepting who we are. We may not like who we are, our behaviors. So we're constantly in this cycle of trying to chase this best version of ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with self-improvement. This is just for you to decide what will work for you, whether you choose to go down that path of self-improvement or choose to go down the path of the self-acceptance, because they're both interlinked here, which I will explain in a moment. So when we are improving ourselves, we are simply telling ourselves there's something about me I actually don't like and I want to change it. And that is a good thing, because as humans, one of the main things we need is purpose, is a drive to change, to evolve. And so we can do this by improving ourselves. So let's take it back to self-acceptance. What comes to your mind now when you think of self-acceptance? You think of maybe accepting who you are as a person. You may even think of like it's defeatist, surrendering, giving in, and thinking, ugh, but it's not. But self-acceptance is a radical form of acceptance. We accept that who we are in our current reality, it's not about just accepting ourselves. We can use acceptance to accept where we currently are right now in our lives. We let go of all of that resistance. We stop trying to chase some version of ourselves. So then we come back into the present. But here's the kind of con of the self-acceptance. We don't want to take responsibility for our own behavior patterns. We don't want to take responsibility for how we have been showing up in the world, for that version of ourselves that where we may have hurt somebody, for being very reactive. Maybe you have an aspects of yourself that are very like controlling or manipulative. And so what can happen here is that we can create some resistance in that self-acceptance process, because the ego doesn't want to take responsibility for our actions. So the ego will be like, no, I'm not going to accept that. I want to not take any responsibility, because it's a huge hit for the ego to take responsibility and accept that they have been like that you have shown up in the world like that. So it's taking radical responsibility, radical self-acceptance. And when we begin to accept where we are in life or who we are as a person, we begin to show ourselves self-compassion, we begin to show ourselves self-love, there's so many self words in that. We begin to cultivate self-love. And so we begin to like ourselves more, rather than this self-improvement where we are like, I don't like this about myself, I've got to improve myself, and trying to like change and force something all the time. Self-acceptance is releasing all of that resistance and that forcefulness. It becomes soft, we accept, but this means letting go of the resistance of the ego. And they both interlink, because when I first woke up in my spiritual awakening, I dove straight into kind of self-improvement work, or like shadow work. I did visualizations, meditations to kind of become this best version of myself, and doing all that inner work to letting go and trying to shift my reality to like one of 5D, and doing all of that inner work, which did help like raise my vibration, and it shifted my whole entire life, my identity. And I was doing the affirmations every day, looking myself in the mirror, putting the sticky notes, trying to change my subconscious mind about who I am as a person. But then a couple of years later, I discovered this word acceptance. Like, yeah, I know that I've heard of the word acceptance before, but when it came to the spiritual path and doing shadow work and just growing as a human being, I discovered this word, not just self-acceptance, but acceptance. I was somebody that would create a lot of resistance because I wanted control, I wanted order. I tried to control the outcome of a situation because it had to go the way I planned it. And if it didn't, I would get triggered. I'd throw a tantrum like a little child. My inner child would come up. And then one time I was trying to get my son asleep at bedtime, or it was a nap time, and I decided to use acceptance. I accepted the fact, okay, this isn't going the way I wanted it. He's clearly not tired. And I decided, just get up. Let's just get up. He's clearly not going to have a nap. I remember it was a nap, and I went downstairs, and it was like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. And I felt so much more calmer, more regulated, because I can get really triggered and dysregulated when things aren't going my way and I'm trying to get my son asleep. It's like I wanted that, my own me time, which any mum can relate to. But when I chose acceptance and I was like, okay, he's not going to go to sleep, I came back into balance. I was able to just see the power of acceptance and stop resisting all of that, trying to control, that ego is trying to control. And so this is when I started to use acceptance in my life. And then that transferred over into self-acceptance. I started doing more mirror work, diving into self-love like practices and concepts, and realizing that I'm not some self-improvement project all of the time. And I can just be present and where I am right now in my life and accept that this is just who I am in life right now. And I find that along the way, when I started doing that, I was able to kind of let go of all versions of myself, and then I embodied new versions of myself. It became more natural for me to do that because I let go of resistance and accepted that this is where I am now and this is where I need to go now. And then I stepped into that role of that new embodied version of myself. So it was never about me forcing this new version of myself, because I find if we go to some kind of self-improvement event or do some course, it lasts for like a week and then we go back to old habits, because most of the time we haven't shifted on an identity level, but we need to come back into the presence, accept where we are now, and then we can take those steps that create less resistance, so then we can improve ourselves rather than forcing something all the time, like trying to force it. And when we're able to accept who we are, we bring it back to the self. We discover who we are. And this is not to say like self-acceptance is better than self-improvement, because we have to improve as souls, our soul evolution. It's our desire as humans to evolve and not stay stagnant, because the most unhappy people are people that don't have any growth in their life. They have no purpose. They don't know what to do. It's because they're not growing and evolving. And that's why you may find, like in relationships, one person has grown up here and the other person has stayed down here. And the person that stayed down there is probably the most unhappy, because they feel they don't know how to grow. They don't know how to evolve. So they feel stuck in life. So I hope this video has gained you some more clarity over, do I continue to improve myself through knowledge and books and courses, which is very masculine? Or do I choose self-acceptance, which is a bit more feminine? We release the resistance. We kind of come back into our bodies almost, because I can really feel that in my body when I choose acceptance. And I choose to accept who I am as a woman, and know that I can become those more highest embodied versions of myself when I choose to just like accept, because I accept those into my life rather than forcing them into my life and being them. Like I've got to be this person right now and trying to make it happen. And if you want to learn how to cultivate more self-compassion and self-love, check out this video next. And that being said, I will see you in that video. Much love.